Tonight, more than 10,000 homes are threatened by explosive wildfires around Los Angeles. Evacuations are mandatory. I'm Jeff Glor. Also tonight, a new and disturbing look inside the squalid compound where a kidnapped California girl was held for years. A new drug could bring new hope for heart patients on blood-thinning drugs. And the astronaut artist still making history 40 years later.
These are the first paintings of someplace besides this earth by somebody that's ever been there.
This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. Russ Mitchell is off. We begin tonight in Southern California, where authorities are pleading with residents of several neighborhoods to get out as dangerous wildfires threaten 12,000 homes around Los Angeles. 2,000 firefighters are struggling to contain the raging blazes. More than 6,000 homes have been evacuated, but some who did not heed the warnings were burned. Hattie Kaufman joins us live tonight from just outside L.A. Hattie?
Jeff, this is a fast-growing fire. It has tripled in size just since yesterday. Take a look at that plume of smoke. Conditions are so smoky up there that some firefighting aircraft have had trouble making their drops. It's an inferno. Triple-digit temperatures and drought-dry brush that goes up like kindling.
We would just ask that we tell you to leave. When we say that we tell you to leave, you leave because your life is in danger. It's very important that you understand that.
As vacation cabins incinerated, authorities rushed to evacuate thousands of homes.
It's a mandatory evacuation order. Obviously, the fire is here.
We'll just have to pray for the best.
Flames crawling up hillsides with million-dollar homes above. As always, there were holdouts.
We decided to stay.
John Boyer was trying to protect his home with a garden hose.
I'm here for the last stand, making sure that the house that my dad, my brother, and I built doesn't get burnt down.
Through the day, evacuation centers filled with people and pets.
Oh, yes.
Jane Armstrong brought her family pictures and her pups, Benny and Rosie.
The cats I was able to find a place for. These guys kind of have to stay with me.
Though there are other fires burning in California, the station fire closest to L.A. is the most dangerous.
This fire is still totally out of control.
265 engines, 12 helicopters, and nearly 2,000 firefighters are battling this one blaze. A massive plume of smoke hung over the city, a reminder of how precarious life here can be.
It's a gamble to live in an area like this, but, you know, that's the risk you take.
The L.A. County Sheriff's Department says 2 people who ignored orders to evacuate and tried to ride out the fire in their hot tub were badly burned. Jeff?
Hattie, I know temperatures have been over 100 for several days now. That's been part of the problem. Any indication those temperatures will break in the coming days?
It is like an oven. It is supposed to get better on Monday. The forecast is for slightly lower temperatures, but the real good news is there could be a marine layer which will bring some moisture, and that'll help firefighters.
All
Jeff?
right, Hattie Kaufman from just outside Los Angeles tonight. Hattie, thank you. And firefighters could also get some badly needed rain this week from Hurricane Jimena, which is now a Category 4. The powerful hurricane is in the Pacific, on track to hit Baja, Mexico on Wednesday. Today, police and FBI agents expanded their investigation to the man charged with kidnapping a young girl and holding her prisoner for 18 years in a secret compound outside his Antioch, California home. John Blackstone tonight gives us a shocking new look inside the suspect's hideout.
Police have now expanded their search of the property where Philip Garrido held J.C. Dugard for years into the yard next door.
At this point, we're going thoroughly through both backyards.
That's because Garrido was the caretaker here. The new resident says when he moved in, he found door locks installed to lock someone inside. And investigators are still going through the backyard compound where J.C. was imprisoned. These are the first photos from inside, showing up close the disturbing conditions in which she was held captive. In a cluttered tent, clothing, toys, and boxes are piled in disarray among mattresses and dressers. Mike Rogers, who owns the lot next door, says he never saw girls back there, but he sometimes heard men having loud parties.
I don't know what they were doing, but it sounded like they were probably, having sex or something in there, partying. Who knows, Heard some screaming, but unless I didn't see it.
Now, as investigators comb through the backyard prison, they are searching for evidence that could link Garrido to other crimes. And police are taking a new look at a string of cold cases of missing and murdered women in the area.
It's an exploratory investigation, and we're just trying to see if there's any link, any possible link between Philip Garrido and those open cases.
15-year-old Lisa Norell disappeared in November 1998. Her body was discovered a week later. Her mother says investigators told her they're looking for evidence Garrido was involved.
But I don't want to think about the pain she probably went through. I don't know.
As investigators look for answers, neighbors keep asking one question. How could a sex offender on parole keep a secret backyard prison for years? John Blackstone, CBS News, San Francisco.
Former Vice President Dick Cheney slammed the White House today following the Justice Department decision last week to investigate charges the CIA allowed its operatives to torture prisoners. Bill Plant reports tonight from the White House.
That President Obama
in a scathing broadside, Cheney called the Attorney General's decision partisan, politicized, and dangerous.
I think it's an outrageous political act that will do great damage long term to our capacity to be able to have people take on difficult jobs, make difficult decisions.
The special prosecutor is to determine whether CIA interrogators broke the law when they used tactics such as mock execution, death threats, and waterboarding, actions the Bush administration looked at and declined to prosecute. The Attorney General's decision came even though President Obama has said repeatedly he's not interested in looking back.
As a general view, I think that we should be looking forward and not backwards.
And Cheney insists the tough interrogation paid off in a big way.
My sort of overwhelming view is that the enhanced interrogation techniques were absolutely essential in saving thousands of American lives.
But the effectiveness of the interrogations remains in dispute. Critics say there's little supporting evidence in the documents the CIA has released. Senator John McCain, once a prisoner of war, also opposes the new investigation, but doesn't believe that torture works.
And I think it harmed our image in the world. But for us now to go back, I think would be a serious mistake.
The chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, which is also investigating the CIA report, wishes the Attorney General had waited.
And I think we need to get the whole story together and tell it in an appropriate way.
The former vice president, who's been harshly critical of the Obama administration from the beginning, took it up a notch today, questioning the president's policies and questioning whether President Obama truly understands what it takes to defend the nation. Jeff?
Bill Plant at the White House this evening. Bill, thank you. We have an update tonight on our colleague, CBS Radio News correspondent Cami McCormick. She was flown to Germany today, where she'll be treated at a U.S. military hospital. McCormick was seriously injured when a U.S. Army vehicle she was riding in struck a roadside bomb in Afghanistan last week. Also overseas, history has been made in Japan. For more than a half-century, nothing could bring down the ruling party there, but the crumbling economy finally did. From Tokyo, here's Barry Peterson.
It was an election between the old guard and the not-so-old guard. The ousted ruling party was in power with one brief interruption since the early 1950s. But the victorious new party is made up mostly of defectors from that ruling party. And voter sentiment was less about politics than practicality, anger that Japan's economy is faltering. The worldwide economic slump cut Japan's exports and just sent the unemployment rate to 5.7%, the highest since World War II. But overall, says this woman, I don't think under the new party our life will be better. Yukio Hatoyama, the next prime minister, wrote in the New York Times that the Japan-U.S. relationship is the cornerstone of Japan's diplomatic policy. But he added that Japan needs to focus more on Asia. Still, Japan can't stray far from the U.S. Japan's defense budget is only about $47 billion a year. That's because it relies for protection on America, with a defense budget of about $666 billion, which includes security for the Asia-Pacific region. Most observers say the new prime minister will stick close to the U.S., not just for defense, but as a major market for Japanese exports. And that means getting Japan's economy back on track may have to wait until its major trading partner, the United States, turns its own economic corner. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Tokyo.
Coming up on tonight's CBS Evening News, a new drug that could offer new hope for heart patients. It is not approved, it's not yet on the market, but researchers today announced that a new drug could be a huge help for many heart patients. Tony Guida reports.
After a heart attack, a drug like Coumadin can be a lifesaver, but life on Coumadin can be a royal pain.
It's like having a mother-in-law, a nuisance, but necessary.
Bill Knobler is among the 3 million Americans taking the blood thinner Coumadin. Like most of them, he suffers from atrial fibrillation, irregular heartbeat. When the heart's chambers do not beat in sync, blood clots can form. Stroke is a major risk. Coumadin is the default prescription, but not without cost.
There are major side effects with Coumadin, the main one being bleeding.
That's because Coumadin needs to be closely watched. Sometimes it thins the blood too much, other times not enough. And that's not all.
The hassle for patients is that it interacts with different foods, it interacts with medicines, and they have to get their blood tested about once a month.
Now comes a major clinical study of a German drug. 18,000 patients from 44 countries, all suffering from irregular heartbeat, were studied for 2 years. Result, the German drug was 3 times more effective than Coumadin at reducing the risk of stroke without the need for frequent blood tests.
This study is huge because all doctors, nurses, and I think patients who need to take this have been waiting for a medication that doesn't need the constant checking and that's not so variable that puts them at risk.
A sweet dream for patients like Bill Knobler.
I'd be ecstatic if there were replacements.
The German drug is called Pradaxa. It has side effects too, indigestion and a slightly greater risk of heart attack. If it wins FDA approval, the drug could be a blockbuster. Experts say the market for oral anticoagulants could be $10 billion a year. Jeff?
All right, wow. Tony Guida, thank you very much tonight. Here is something now that we guarantee you've never seen before. This is the way a molecule looked in your chemistry book back in high school. Now, for the first time, scientists were able to capture an image of a real molecule. Looks just like the old drawing. This molecule is 1/1,000,000th the size of a single grain of sand. For the 5th year in a row, a team from the United States has won the Little League World Series. The team from Chula Vista, California, defeated Taiwan 6-3 in today's championship game in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, and Vice President Joe Biden helped the winners celebrate there. We'll be right back. Polaroid Pictures became history last summer when the last company stopped making the film. And that was the end of that, or so it seemed. But Polaroid may have a second act, as Mark Phillips reports.
Cupcake! Hey, everybody! Here comes your present. Maybe it was the sound. Maybe it was the corny commercials. Polaroid means fun. Or maybe it was the miraculous process that took place right in your hand as the image emerged. There you are. Happy birthday. Oh, je suis belle. Good-looking pig. I've seen better. But yesterday's state-of-the-art technology has now become just yesterday's technology. The Polaroid plant in the Netherlands that supplied the world with film stopped production last July. Polaroid, the tombstone reads, killed by digital.
It was no chance for Polaroid. Digital was faster, cheaper, easier, better quality, whatever. And then suddenly it turned out to be that the people are starting missing something.
So Florian Kaps, an Austrian businessman, bought the old Polaroid plant and set up a company, the Impossible Project, to try to bring a new kind of Polaroid back for its many stubborn devotees.
There's about 1 billion working cameras out there in the market.
Billion Polaroids still out there.
It's amazing.
The cameras are being found in the backs of closets and in attics, but there's a problem. The existing stock of film is running out or well past its sell-by date. Enter the man who ran Polaroid's European production center.
Polaroid was always very secretive. This
Absolutely.
was a top secret process.
Absolutely.
Of how the film
no
was put
photographing
together.
here.
In a new top-secret project, the company is developing a new instant film to try to recapture that old magic.
That thing of you hold it in your hands, you see it develop, and even after 28 years, I mean, that's a lot of years looking at developing film. Every time there is this little adventure, what it exactly will turn out.
It's the photographic equivalent of the vinyl record. The imperfections, part of the charm. The wait for the finished product, which seemed so short then, so long now, part of the fun. The new company thinks it can sell 10 million film packs a year. It's hoping the sound of the past may also be the sound of the future. Mark Phillips, CBS News, Enschede, the Netherlands.
At Virginia's Arlington National Cemetery, the first members of the public paid their respects today at the grave of Senator Ted Kennedy. Darkness had fallen by the time he was buried last night, within sight of the graves of his brothers John and Robert. Still ahead on tonight's CBS Evening News, an out-of-this-world artist. A presidential commission is expected to report this week that without a significant increase in funding, NASA will not be able to make a return trip to the moon before 2020, the first step on a possible eventual mission to Mars. If you forget just how inspiring space travel can be, meet the focus of our weekend journal tonight. Alan Bean, 40 years later, still amazed by what he saw.
They did give me the American flag for my suit.
Alan Bean became the fourth man to step on the moon 40 years ago, and he still goes back every day, painting where he once walked.
These tell a story about a great moment in human history. These are the first paintings of someplace besides this earth by somebody that's ever been there.
3, 2, 1, 0.
In November 1969, Bean was the lunar module pilot for Apollo 12, the second manned mission to the moon, spending 8 hours there, nearly every minute filled with scientific experiments. So, this is what you saw?
This is what I saw, and I can remember looking out at the earth when it looked just like this and thinking, wow, that's so beautiful, but gosh, it's 240,000 miles away.
When you look back on all this 40 years later, do you still look back with amazement and wonder, I can't believe I did this?
Absolutely. It was more science fiction to us, I think, than it was to the average public. We knew how difficult it was. We knew how many things had to go right.
A retrospective of Bean's art is now showing at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum in Washington. Images of an awesome but arid surface.
This is like going halfway across the Sahara Desert and stopping your car, which is running great, and getting out and camping out for a couple of days, and then hoping when you start it up, the battery works, because if it doesn't, you're up creek.
One of the things that really strikes me about the exhibit is that this is not just what happened, it's what you felt and what you imagined.
That's right. I think that's the fun part of the story.
So, Bean and Apollo 12 commander Pete Conrad tossing a football? That never happened. Nor did this planned photo op.
An artist's job is not necessarily to recreate reality. An artist's job is to make reality like he wish it were.
Bean works with acrylic paint on wood, marking it with the tools of the astronaut's trade.
This is the hammer that I had on the moon.
From a hammer bearing the scratches of moon rocks to a moon boot, leaving footprints literally on his portraits.
In this painting right here, I cut a little piece off the flag of my suit, and I've got it right there.
Oh, yeah. Bean does work methodically, completing only 162 paintings in 28 years. But at 77, he hopes to make 40 more.
I've got a list over there of the stories that I've heard over the years. It's longer than I can ever do in my lifetime, but I've got them prioritized. And whenever I finish one, then I do the next one. And I'll keep doing that as long as I can, so I'll end up telling the best stories that I know.
Pretty amazing guy. The Smithsonian exhibit of Alan Bean's paintings will be up through the end of this year. That is the CBS Evening News tonight. Later on CBS, 60 Minutes. And tomorrow morning on The Early Show, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend will be a guest. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday evening. For Russ Mitchell, I'm Jeff Glor, CBS News in New York. Good night.